All right, we're here with the Larry Penn Legacy Project, and I'm here with Sandy and Ruth, and going to just kind of dig up a little bit of Larry Penn history. Sandy and Ruth were good friends with Larry, and fans, admirers, interpreters, all kinds of stuff. Many a fun night. We had picking parties together, and sure you guys have a lot of great memories of Larry Penn. And I think I'm gonna just kind of start with you, just because this is the first question that pops into my head. Sandy, is what was your impression of Larry's guitar style? He had a very unique guitar style. Like I heard elements of Josh White. He spoke very fondly of Leadbelly. He right. Occasionally mentioned Mississippi John Hurt. And then he had all these influences that very few people knew about, like his days working with Bill Brown in a jazz duo, and I think that affected his playing. But I don't feel like Larry ever got as much credit for the coolness of his guitar playing. And any thoughts or comments about
absolutely,
that?
because as we were learning these tunes and listening to him, so I guess if I were going to do a quick description, it would be sort of a countrified John Hurt, because he had the picking pattern, steady thumb melody in the treble. So John Hurt and hundreds of other people, but it was sort of like the White version, kind of countrified a little bit. And a couple of tunes we're learning for this have a real fun ragtime progression in it, and that was another aspect of Larry. He wasn't, three chords and the truth. He threw in some nice chord progressions.
Yeah. I'm glad you said ragtime, because I have often thought that, and I know sometimes he would admit it and sometimes he wouldn't. I think he was just messing with me sometimes, but like, for example, he told me about I'm a Little Cookie being inspired by If You Want to Shimmy Like Sister Kate. Larry was in, I don't know, if it was jazz band or he was a drummer in high school. And, but he was very influenced by, like jazz era stuff. And a lot of people didn't realize that. And that's why it makes sense when I think about how he spoke about Josh White, because he covered covered one Meatball. And things like that, but when you said ragtime, you kind of hit it right on the head. He loved that 1-6-2-5 type of turn, and
good use of it.
Yeah, someone once described Larry's thumb as akin to John Henry's hammer, because it was just like right. Rock steady,
the beat,
constantly.
Ruth,
well, you have kind of a funny little story about it.
Please share it.
Speaking of shimmying, so we were at a picking party, and he had just done I'm a Little Cookie, and I said something like, "Oh, so you got the chord progression from Shimmy Like My Sister Kate." And he took it wrong. He thought I was like accusing him of plagiarism. And there was this icy silence, So I kind of moved out of arm's reach just in case.
Yeah.
And eventually he cooled down. But then, of course, much later, Shimmy Like My Sister Kate was one of Penny Fox's signature songs. So later in the party, she did it. And Johnny Rosen, who was a guy who would never let a chance pass to be a smartass, segued into I'm a Little Cookie and pissed off Larry all over again.
Oh man, this is great, because I don't know, I had a similar experience with Larry.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah. And it's a song that I do constantly. It's his version of Banks of Ohio, which I played at the tribute. I'm gonna play this year as well. And when he played it for me one time, I was like, "Oh, that's Banks of the Ohio." And same thing, he got real irritated about that. But then on another occasion, when Name Some Things That Money Can't Buy, another one I cover, is he just he goes, "Oh yeah, you recognize that? It's Oh Mary, don't you weep, don't you mourn." So sometimes he is willing to admit it, and sometimes maybe his pride wouldn't. I don't know. I found Larry to be modest more than anything.
Yeah.
So, but how about you, Ruth? What about what about Larry moved you or moves you? What about his songwriting craft? Does anything jump out to you that find memorable or interesting?
Right. Well, we're very happy to be invited to be part of the tribute because that has gotten us to learn Larry songs. We some of them we recognize from parties, but ones that we didn't actually learn before. And so and they're great. They're wonderful. They're so down home and
Yeah.
real. But two things. I mean, you talked about the picking parties, and I remember Larry sitting right over there on that couch. This was, I don't even know how many years ago. And there were some friends visiting from Dodgeville. And it was like they were in the presence of, real famous guy. And they were, of course, and when you were talking about how people didn't recognize it. And it was a thrill to have him around because he could add so much. He and Pat, I mean, they were just fabulous people. And the other thing about it, Larry was very kind. I mean, he sort of came across as a little gruff sometimes. There was a party, this was a picking party that was outside. And I was sitting next to Larry, and I was a fairly unaccomplished mandolin player, but I was playing my mandolin. And somebody walked in with a mandolin, somebody everybody knows around in this town, who walked in with a mandolin. And somebody else said, "Oh, we finally have a mandolin player." And Larry said, "We've had a perfectly fine mandolin player all along." He wasn't going to let that go by, and I appreciated that. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, the last couple years of Larry's life, he would often say, or try to find a way to say, I wish the phone was ringing a little bit more. So, and I had plenty of gigs, so I was all too happy to ask my hero to share a gig and pick him up and grab his guitar, and he was slowing down, and I hope that put a little wind under his wings the last couple of years of his life, and it was like the greatest thrill for me to have one of my musical heroes going out and sharing gigs with me, and we had a lot of opportunities to do that. And I can tell you, Ruth, as a mandolin player, most of what I did when I backed Larry or played with him was usually mandolin, sometimes harmonica. So I know that he really appreciated it, and I look forward to hearing you guys play some of his tunes. Yeah. I'm gonna just take a pause for a moment here.